Hi, welcome to another video. I'm so excited that you are here today. We are talking about strategies to mitigate funding threats. But before we begin, I just want to remind you that this channel exists so that we can provide solutions and fill those gaps in our burdened health systems. We know that minority and racialized populations are in need of greater care. And through this channel, we aim to support health administrators and program leaders to support them in what they are doing so that their communities can be healthier. So today we are talking about strategies to mitigate funding threats. And this is a big one. I remember being so maybe disillusioned sometimes, scared, afraid of funding coming to an end, whether those were state funds or federal funds. I know so many organizations, nonprofits, they are experiencing dwindling funds. And in a previous video, we spoke about challenges that exist for agencies that are experiencing dwindling funding base. So today, let us look on the positive side. What can we do to mitigate those funding threats? And the first point that I have is diversifying funding sources. So often we feel obligated, we feel restricted to the funds that we have. So whether those are funds from the city council or maybe funds from the state department of health or the state health and human services, whatever agency that funds your program, we feel like we are confined to those funds. But today I am here to say that you are not. You can diversify your funding sources. And I have seen firsthand where agencies who have wider funding sources are able to feel much more secure, not only for job security, but also in the work that they're doing, how they employ and retain staff. All of those things matter when it comes to being secure, comfortable with a diversified funding base. So the first point that I have under diversifying funding sources is explore new grant opportunities. And what do I mean by explore new grant opportunities? And I brought those down into 3 points. One, we need to research funding sources. We need to network with peers, and we need to tailor proposals. And I know these are large buckets. And I must say, in my previous videos where I've used AI to generate images, and I feel like it was very interesting, but I feel like it was very packed, like a lecture at a university, right? I feel like I poured in a lot of information. So today, this video is breaking them down. Okay. So research funding sources. I know in the US, grants.gov is a database that covers a wide coverage of the federal agencies' request for funding or available funding that they have. And so whether it's SAMHSA, which is looking at mental health, or it's HRSA, looking at community health centers, federally qualified community health centers, or one of the more popular ones, CDC, they cover a wide range. So you can find all of them from the federal agencies through grants.gov. There are foundations, and this is something I personally must say that I did not dig into much. I know that there are many agencies or foundations who provide funds for communities to improve health, and they may have slight tweaks to them. Maybe they focus on a particular area, maybe they focus on women and children, maybe they focus on a minority group. Whatever it is, foundations, I believe, are an untapped funding source for many agencies. And I think it is because they are not as popular. Their funding may be up to maybe 200,000, maybe a 50,000, but those grants matter. $50,000 injection into your agency is a big deal. Local health department websites, I think those are, of course, I think quite popular and known. Well, definitely in the Northeast, but it is important that not only are we just keeping track of grant opportunities, but that we're keeping track of new research and new data that's coming out. So health department website is an absolute must. City councils, and I must say that it was really since 2015 that I started understanding that city council really has, they have um, monies that they are attributing to various initiatives. So whether it's community development, whether it's health, whether it's arts and culture, whether it's various types of prevention in health, um, this is a really good resource. And of course, various state agencies. And so doing your research for funding sources is very, very important. And we have to maybe create a matrix here of, of funding sources, maybe the length of time, maybe their priority areas, maybe the amount, the minimum and the maximum, and those key criteria that they're looking for. The second point here is network with peers. And I know sometimes there's this secretive thing in our amongst agencies, and I mean, we need to debunk those things. Those things are unhelpful. They don't bring our community any closer to their goal state, and we just need to push past those things, push past our fears and the fears in our environs. So workshops and conferences are very important, and making sure that your agency has budget for these activities are definitely important. And why are they important? Because at these um, events, you're able to meet persons that you would not have met in your regular course of work. And so it's important that through these events, whether it's local or statewide or national, that we are there. Why? Because we need to connect with other agencies. And as you're connecting to build partnership, we are able to ask about their funding sources. And remember that funding, even though it is finite, there are still untapped resources. So we don't have to be so constrained, so secretive, so anal in how we approach networking. Most grants are competitive. You have to write a proposal. So it's not because you say, oh, I get funding from the Davis Foundation, means that, okay, that means I'm no longer getting funding from the Davis Foundation and that person is going to take it. No. Once you're doing what you are supposed to do with the funds that you have, I bet you that you are going to not only have Davis, but you will have McFarlane, and you will have McLaren, and you will have all these other agencies that are knocking at your door because you do good work. And then the third one that I have under diversifying funding sources for exploring new grant opportunities is tailor proposals. And this is tailoring your project proposals. I know a lot of times it's simpler to just rinse and repeat the proposal that you have. But it's important that as you find new funding sources, that you understand the funders' priorities. Why? Because that's the funders' priorities. If you don't address the funders' priorities, they're not going to give you their funds. So it's important that we're addressing their priorities, maybe tweaking your initial area to bring out the priorities from the funders' side. Emphasize community impact and sustainability. And it's important that this is done. And I remember years ago, when I started out working, my first project was in rural development. And I was just out of university, and I just didn't understand fully what this sustainability meant. And over time, I understand that when you give a dollar, you don't just want your dollar to just expire in the air. You want your dollar to live on in ways that are profound. So, for example, if you're looking at microfinancing and you give a group of ladies who are making quilts, you give them $10. You want to see that the quilt that they make and that they sell will now regenerate into a bigger capital that they can make many more quilts, and that making of a quilt industry is also building up families and building up their children's education for not only generational wealth, but just building out the capabilities, the capacities, the talents of communities. And that's what we want to see coming out of sustainability. So it's important that your project, your grant proposals are aligned with your funders' priorities. And so instead of just jumping into writing a proposal, understand where the funder is with their priority. Maybe understand some of the projects they have funded in the past. Maybe even look to see the projects they have highlighted as their success. And just infer from those projects the heart and soul of the funder. And so when you craft your proposal, which is meeting a need that you have in your community, you are both being able to realize your goal state. And so that is very important. And looking at community impact is also important. And one of the things that I will talk about in our next, as we look at number 2 under diversifying funding sources, is partnerships. And this starts from B under researching funding sources. As you're exploring new grants, one of the things that you're doing is also seeing who is in your community. That needs assessment should not only focus on yourself, but it should focus on what others are doing in your community. And when you do that, are able to build your network. So yes, you don't have to build your network only through workshops and conferences, but you can build it through as you're researching funding sources and seeing who have also been awarded grants, maybe in your area, and then networking with them. And when you're creating your proposals doesn't always have to be your agency focus, but it could also be a collaborative effort. And that is one of those things that we also have not tapped into, using our collaborative strength to get even bigger funding proposals. So instead of getting a proposal for 500,000 US dollars, maybe with a collaborative approach, you could get a funding proposal for $900,000. whatever it is, you can do more through tailoring your proposals, building out your network because you have done good research. So thank you so much. We are going to continue looking at diversifying funding sources in our next video. I do hope that this was helpful. Bye.